Thank you for tuning in to the back page. It is March 11th. It is episode 17. I'm your host, Collin Crisp.
And I'm Carter Davis. Today we're going to be looking into some college basketball talk. We're about a week away from Selection Sunday, so this is honestly one of my favorite weeks of the sports calendar, and that's the conference tournament week. A lot of people talk about March Madness starting with the first four, and then the round of 64, but for me, I really think the tournament starts this week with the amount of automatic bids and the competitive games we're going to see in this conference tournament. So what conference do we want to take a look at first, Colin?
We start East Coast, ACC.
All right, yeah. Let's go East Coast. And first of all, before we want to get into the ACC, I want to talk about that Duke-Carolina game we saw on Saturday night. Honestly, small miracle. I mean, not actually nothing small about it. Just absolute act of God that Kyle Filipowski was able to play in that game. I mean, horrific injury in the Wake Forest game. I thought he was going to have to get his leg amputated. Honestly, I wasn't sure if he'd ever walk again. And miraculously was able to play in that Carolina game. And then I think everyone's seen the clip of him tripping the Carolina player on the fast break and kind of assuming his role as the new heel at Duke and stuff. But aside from that, all the antics of the game, really big-time performance by Carolina, I think, and kind of changed how I view the ACC a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I think that the ACC is the kind of conference where the mid-tier teams can pull off upsets to the top ones, but can also lose to anybody on bottom. And so that makes the teams like North Carolina, Duke, the ones up top, that when they lose and they get upset, it makes them look worse. But I don't think that's any knock on them, and more it shows how inconsistent the middle of that conference can be. Because teams in the middle of that conference, let me give you some good examples, such as Wake Forest, Syracuse, Clemson. They're the kind of teams that could get hot and make a run, but also could just get upset any given Saturday. So North Carolina has some suspect losses, but these are the teams like Syracuse that got hot at the right time. But I think that overall this is a better conference than we had the last couple of years.
Is there a particular team you see coming out of this one?
I mean, it's kind of boring to pick the one, but I really like this North Carolina team.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough because I don't think a Miami matchup is necessarily like a free matchup for them, and that'd be the lowest seed that they would face leading up to this. But I could see Virginia making a run to the final and getting past Duke. And a lot of times when you get to conference tournament finals, anything can happen, right? We see a lot of the seeding and the odds go out the window. And this Wake Forest team looks kind of dangerous too. I could see them maybe, if they can get that win first round, sneaking past Pitt. Then there will be the third round of the conference game. But yeah, I mean, Carolina, gosh. Somehow, quietly, because Carolina is one of the biggest brands in college basketball and basketball in general. They have two studs on this roster right now that will go down as, in my opinion, all-time great Tar Heels in R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot, and I feel like it goes kind of under the radar a little bit.
Oh, 100%. I think all around this is one of the more talented Tar Heels teams we've seen. We joked about before how North Carolina and Duke alternate having just stud years, and last year North Carolina made a run doing more with less, and this year I think that they could do more with more. This is a team that I think could really go super deep into the tournament once we get to the everybody tournament, and then so here in the ACC tournament I have no reason to expect different.
Yep, I like them. Let's stay on the East Coast for a minute. Do you see the Big East as decided as a lot of people are talking about it being?
Yes.
You think it's wrapped up?
Yeah. I absolutely love UConn. I think they are the team in college basketball right now. And I look at that Big East, and I just don't know who can beat them. And even when I look nationally, there's only a couple teams that I think has the ceiling to knock off UConn, just because their floor is so high. UConn is insanely good. Now, the only team in the Big East I could see pulling it is Creighton, because we've seen them beat them before.
Yeah, that was great on Creighton's home floor.
Yeah. So I could see Creighton pulling out a stunner, like a thriller in a neutral site. I could see that happening. But that would be, it would take a miraculous, really good close game out of Creighton for that not to be just UConn, to me.
Yeah, I mean, some other teams kind of pop into mind. I know Villanova's in the bubble right now. They haven't really had the year that we've kind of seen from them in the past decade. Obviously, coaching changes is part of that, and different lineup and stuff. But I'm not totally done with Marquette yet. I think they have a great player, like one of the best players in the nation, Kolick, at their guard spot. I think Marquette can be really dangerous in this tournament, just like we saw them do last year as well.
Yeah, I see that. I don't know. I'm lower on Marquette this year, partially just because fatigue. Like they won last year and going back to back, some impressive feat. And then on top of that, I feel like last year the whole thing was winning close games. Like last year they were really good at winning close games. They'd space the floors, get threes late, and they were accurate enough to get themselves into favorable positions late in games. And I feel like that clutch factor has not been exactly the same. It hasn't felt the same this year. Is it bad? Not necessarily, but regressed from last year, yes. And I have a hard time putting stock on a team that I feel like got worse.
Yeah, I don't feel like we were talking about Marquette in this light before their conference tournament last year either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm obviously I'm not saying that everything's an apples to apples comparison from year to year in college basketball, because it never is, but I really do think that I could see Marquette, Creighton. I mean, as far as they are down, I think Butler could win a couple games if they need to.
Really?
I think. I mean, Xavier hasn't really had the year that we expected from them. Providence has been I swear Providence has lost probably a dozen. I mean, not a dozen, but I've seen probably a dozen Providence games on national TV, and I swear it's always close. Win or lose. So I could see them being a player in this. I really don't think. St. John's, I'm very high on. Trying to turn around a little bit after some questionable remarks to the press by head coach Pitino there, but I think UConn's definitely the class of the Big East, but I don't necessarily think that they're as far away from the pack as everyone else does.
Okay.
Because I'll be honest, my favorite team going into March Madness, my overall number one seed is Houston. So not seeing UConn in the same number one overall seed as some people are, I think that might be kind of affecting how I look into the Big East tournament too.
Gotcha. See, for me, I have the other side of that where I think UConn's number one team in the country. For me, so as the number one seed in the country, I mean, if we take UConn out of that bracket, I'm right there with you. Creighton, Marquette, I'd say even Seton Hall was really good. They can spark a flame. That 8-9 game is strangely interesting. If they were playing any other team in the Big East, I'd say that could be the winner of that could be a sleeper. And then Providence, I'll agree with you on that. They lose close games recently. They flip that switch, but it's just UConn, man. And for me, I think UConn's the best team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, I just Houston in terms of defense, and they're a perennial Elite Eight team. I feel like they have experience in big time games. I think coaching is a huge plus for them. Coach Sampson there, and so being in the Big 12, is this their first year in the Big 12? Are they part of the new merge? Okay, so being in the Big 12, kind of looking at this and kind of this hybrid Big 12 with the American teams kind of integrated in now. Kansas currently sits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the Big 12.
6. That's insane.
I'm not sure that many people are taking Kansas, as the sixth best team in this conference, right? I think people are looking at Kansas a lot higher than that. So I think this conference tournament in terms of the Big 12 is just going to be a bloodbath. I can't wait to watch this one. Big 12 consistently one of probably my favorite Power 5 conference year after year. I love watching those Baylor teams a couple of years ago. Kansas has always kind of been the villain for me. But they have guys year after year. I've liked Iowa State this year. That program went from I think going winless in 2020, 2021. Now here they are sitting behind Houston with a lot of momentum. Other than the loss this past game. But I think a strong season outside of the loss to K-State on Saturday, kind of going into this conference tournament here. I kind of like Iowa State in this one in terms of like make it to the final. I think they could, beat. I'm not sure. Can we pull the bracket? I'm not sure how this one laid out. So is Kansas in their path or would?
So if Kansas wins, no, they won't be in the path. They'll play Baylor. But then if Kansas beats Baylor, then they would play Iowa State.
Okay, yeah. So I like Iowa State making a run. But either way, I like just thinking. I'm pretty sure a Houston Kansas final is possible in this one, right?
Houston, Kansas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and I mean, we saw just recently. I mean, yeah, this Saturday, Houston beat Kansas by 30, and just I think it'd be an entertaining game still because it's a championship game and these are championship programs and stuff. But I mean, just to kind of give you an idea, I think a lot of people have Kansas in high regard right now. Despite it, like you said, being a down year for them.
Mm-hmm.
And Houston just beat them by 30. That, like, in terms of the defense and just their balance and ability to rebound the ball in clutch situations, I really like Houston.
Yeah, for me, Houston has the easiest path in this tournament, as they should as the 1 seed. But, like, when you think about some perennially really good teams are seeded lowly in this tournament, and they avoid Houston still. Like, Kansas running the 6. Texas running the 7. Like, these are two teams that Houston won't have to play. If they would have landed 8 or 5, they would have had to have. So Houston, their line of path includes teams like BYU, Texas Tech, and that's more favorable to me than having to face Baylor and Kansas. So I think Houston, like, for me, is a lot to make it to the final in the Big 12. The other side of this is a bloodbath, dude. The other half of this tournament is like it's brutal to me because assuming Texas beats Kansas State, which they just Kansas State had a huge upset win this last week, so that's not even locked in stone. But if Texas wins, assuming Kansas beats the winner of that 11 game, then that sets us up with matchups: Iowa State, Texas, Baylor, Kansas. And dude, that's gross. That's so good. And like those are 4 teams that I could see going really deep into March. And honestly, with this bracket, I could see Texas pulling a couple upsets and making it to the conference championship here.
Don't do this to their coach; he'll get offended.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that Big 12 tournament is probably going to be my favorite to watch.
100%. It's so good.
Power 5. The shift to the Big 10, I think just being the local team for us, the team that I kind of followed the closest has been Ohio State. I was able to see their game against Michigan. This would be last. This not the one that just happened the weekend before last. And I'm not saying Chris Holtmann made this team like a bad team or anything, but just under Diebler in the past few weeks, like they are so much more fun to watch. Offense is more free flowing. There's more of a kind of an urgency out there. Kind of a I don't know. It just they seem refreshed. The Buckeyes do, and obviously they've dropped. I think to Minnesota. They lost on the road, which is always a tough place to play for them. But I mean, big wins over Purdue, Michigan State. I mean, Michigan's not in high regard right now, but I mean that's still a rivalry game. It's still your big opponent. Able to take care of that on senior night. Like,
Did we pull off a Nebraska win, or did they beat us?
Check real quick. I think Ohio State. I could see them being a first-round exit, and I could see them winning this whole thing.
Oh, I'm on the same page. So here's you a good stat, viewer. Every game, Ohio State has started 10 players for more than 10 minutes. It's been under Diebler. As Chris Holtmann, not one time had the bench in for more than 10 minutes. That's been the spark in this team.
They did beat Nebraska, by the way.
Okay, yeah, they upset a Nebraska team that's running the 3 seed, by the way. So they have a lot of momentum. But so this Ohio State bench has lit a fire in this whole team.
So I believe the Purdue game was Diebler's first game.
Mm-hmm.
They have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the last 6 under Diebler.
Yes. So we've went 5-1 since he came in. And this is a team before we beat Purdue, and really after we beat Purdue, I think after the Nebraska win, that I would have never, ever saw making the tournament. And I'm a Buckeye fan. I was sad. I had done giving up on this. And now if we don't even got, in my mind, we don't even got to make the championship game. Like, if we win, let's say we beat Iowa, and then we pull off an upset against Illinois, like, that's a compelling case. We can make the tournament.
I just don't know in terms of the at-large bid. I mean, I'm not even sure that they're the best Big Ten team to get an at-large bid if not win the tournament. I mean, I like Northwestern. I think, obviously the regular season wins go in Ohio State's favor, but I think Nebraska could be a player in this. Like,
I think the Big Ten's
going
going to be
Illinois right now, but
yeah.
So I could see the Illinois win helping, but I'm just saying I'm not sure like making anything short of the final would be enough for Ohio State.
I think there's going to be a lot of Big Ten teams make it in, though. Like, I'm sitting here looking at it, and I'm like, okay, so Purdue, no matter what's in, right? I think that Nebraska has a good shot at making it in. Northwestern's kind of like bubbly right now. And then Wisconsin, I don't know what to think of them. But I know Wisconsin's on the bubble, Michigan State's on the bubble, Northwestern's on the bubble, Ohio State's on the bubble. There's a lot of, if you're wanting like bubble conversation, this is the tournament for you because there's just a whole lot of it right now in the Big Ten. So if Ohio State could get some wins and Northwestern loses early, like, I could see it happening.
Yep. I know that people have been talking about bringing in Dusty May from FAU to coach the Buckeyes next year. And, maybe the Buckeyes play him out in this tournament. But I do think that Hubert should be the coach going into the next season. And I think it's a good thing when you hire from within and there's an obvious connection with this team and this program. And I think they play well under him. And I think just the vibes around Ohio State basketball in the past 2 weeks have been better than we've seen in the past 3 years.
Yes.
So, yeah, I hope Hubler's around for a long time. I really like him as the Ohio State coach. Hey, do we want to go Mountain West or do we want to go Pac-12?
Let's go Pac-12 first, and then we can rave about the Mountain West because I love that conference right now. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the mid-major conference tournaments are going to be just as good, if not better, than a lot of the Power Five.
Yes.
And I want to get to a couple of the mid-majors after this one, too, because I believe we'll hit other than SEC, so we'll dive into SEC real quick.
All right, so question for you. Arizona or the field?
Gosh. Can I see the bracket and see how things lay out?
There you go.
Yeah, so it's tough to argue with Arizona right now. Mm-hmm. And every year, I feel like going into March Madness, I get high on Arizona, and I think 3 of the last 4 years I've picked them as a national champion for some reason. I don't know why, but like something about this Wildcats program, I see them in the Pac-12, and you look at their resume and you're like, who can't they beat? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But looking at this bracket right here, I don't hate the UCLA run that I can see happen. I don't know why. Something about this UCLA team, it just like sticks out to me. It's just like I don't really have any reasoning for it. And I'll look stupid if they lose first round to Oregon State, but I could see them making a run to the third round to play an Arizona team. But other than that, like I do take Arizona, and I think they're going to be a bigger player in March than people are kind of looking at them as right now. What do you think?
I think so. I'm looking at it. I don't think Washington or USC can beat Arizona. I think that I know we just watched USC do it, but that's exactly why I don't think it will happen again. Yeah. Because I don't think that Arizona's going to let that happen twice. Oregon's the most injured team in the country by about 30 players. The amount of injuries that team has went through is insane. Like, this is a bit of a hot take, but I genuinely think Oregon could have won this conference if not for their regular season, if not for their injuries. This was a team I was really flying high on going into the season, and then I just watched their entire roster get decimated, and they still got the 4 in the pack. Like, I think that could have happened, but I think if UCLA beats Oregon, I could see them maybe pulling off an Arizona upset just based off talent. UCLA's team's really talented. And then Washington State's so hot. That's a hot team. I think Washington State is a team that's flown really under the radar this year. But the second half of the year for Washington State has been one of the more impressive feats in college basketball this year.
Yeah.
And I could see them making a run and end up winning this tournament. And Washington State's got that factor where, like, they feel like they have something to prove still. Arizona's going to get a good seed no matter what. Washington State, like, there's people on the fence about them, even though I don't think they should be.
Yeah.
Like, this is, I could see Washington State overthrowing Arizona. I could see UCLA wanting to make a statement and upsetting some people. But besides UCLA and Washington State, I think this is a 3-horse race, and Arizona's got the biggest horse.
Let's get SEC out of the way so we can talk about the mid-major conferences.
Sounds good.
I guess straight up, Tennessee or Kentucky?
I like Tennessee. Dude, best player in the country. I love him. Okay, he's so great. He's my favorite watch in the country right now because everyone's like, Zach Edey's the best player in the country. He was boring.
Zach Edey's not fun to watch now.
Exactly, he's boring.
I'm biased. I'll take De'Ron Holmes from Dayton any day of the week, but obviously I watch him every night.
Yeah.
But those guards from Kentucky are hard to argue with.
Yeah.
With Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepherd, I mean, I really hope that is the final game in this tournament because I just want to see that matchup again.
I think that we are very much missing the literal elephant in the room. I love this Alabama team. Like, I think under the radar, this Alabama team can make more of a splash in March than they did last year.
Alabama has quietly been a great basketball program for the past 6 years.
Yes.
And I think, you have guys in the NBA, and when they were stars in college, I'm talking about guys like, a Colin Sexton, a Brandon Miller, guy plays with Pelicans, he's awesome. Herb Jones. You get a lot of attention. I'm not sure that the national audience is as familiar with Alabama. I know I'm definitely not this year. So why should I be excited about the Alabama team?
Mark Sears, one of the best players to go through this program in at least the last decade. Like, Mark Sears ended up getting drafted and then getting more draft hype than Miller did, like, this last year. He is so good. And Zach Edey's a big, but Connect is not, and neither is Sears. And if we're looking at guard in the country right now, I think it's a 2-horse race for best guard in the country, and it's between Connect and Sears.
Yeah.
And that's why I want that to be the SEC championship game. I hope Alabama can pull off a Kentucky upset, because if they can, then I would love to see Connect versus Sears, the two most entertaining players to watch in this country, in my opinion, right now, face off against each other in the SEC title game. It'd be a beautiful matchup.
Something to keep in mind is Auburn still on tournament probation?
Let's see.
Because that could,
No, they're the 4.
No, but from the NCAA tournament.
Oh, let me look. Okay.
I thought they were on ban still, maybe because of some things that happened. But that's something to keep in mind, too. That could affect the at-large bid situation, right? Like, let's say Auburn makes a run, and they beat a Tennessee, they beat a Kentucky or something like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that those teams are, obviously both those teams are in it, you know what I mean? But if Auburn can't take up a bid, then you start to look down the bracket and see what other teams can. That was just a thought I had while looking at this. But yeah, I don't hate Florida either. I think a Florida-Alabama matchup would be really fun to watch.
I think Auburn can get in.
Auburn can get in?
I believe so.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure how long that lasted. But I think Florida could be an interesting team. I don't think that the Florida-Alabama game is necessarily a giveaway.
Oh, for sure not. I think Florida is one of the more physical teams in this conference. Yeah. They're a team that can really wear and tear you down. And I want to throw out a team that I think was the biggest surprise for me personally in the country this year. South Carolina is a great team.
Yeah, I think I want to say what we got to say. I think a lot of people think of them as a women's college basketball school. And kind of like with UConn, kind of like with Iowa, obviously UConn's the best team in the country. I'm saying historically, but like with Iowa and South Carolina, I feel like it's kind of a strange phenomenon, but their men's team is floating under the radar just because of how good their women's teams have been.
Tennessee used to be like that, where their women's team was just so insanely good that when their men's team was good, no one paid attention. And South Carolina is like that this year, because if you watch any South Carolina game, you'll see it's super fast paced. For all the OCC basketball enjoyers, watching the pod, it's kind of like watching Westerville North game, where like it is just so fast paced. They're constantly getting at you, fast break. They just press you down the whole court, the entire game, and like by the time you get the second half of the second half, you're just exhausted.
Yeah.
Like South Carolina is like a snake, and he just exhausts you the whole time.
That's a good comparison. I mean, Westville South, that's a program we have a lot of respect for. With those, coaching staff and players and what they're able to do on a nightly basis. I mean, we've had tough games with them every single time we played them for the past 2 years. So I mean, if you put that in terms of like college basketball, how would you compare that to Auburn? You know what I mean? Like,
I really will say that I know this about Auburn, and that is close games have been their nemesis this year.
Okay.
Because if not for that, they might be the 1 seed in this conference. Because this is the reason I haven't watched many Auburn games this year. Anytime I tune into a game where Auburn is winning, they're winning by like 30.
Okay.
And then anytime you tune into a game where Auburn is losing, it's super close, and then you leave that game thinking about the other team. So Auburn's flown under the radar because they haven't had like this just big like buzzer-beating surprise, holy cow, they won that game moment. Because anytime they win by 30. But they got to be able to win the close games, and they can't survive like this in March. They'll have to get hot now.
We get to mid-majors now?
Of course.
Right. Yeah, so Mountain West, I think, has kind of been my, like, sweetheart of college basketball this year in terms of conferences. Crazy how the Final Four team from last year is a 5 seed, but what are we feeling about this Mountain West tournament? Because I literally could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these teams heading up in March.
Okay. I, along with you, really love this conference. It's been an underrated darling of the year so far. I really like UNLV just because like they historically have a lot of rep, and then now looking at them, like there was a big period where they went from historically relevant to like sad, and then now they're not sad anymore. And throughout the year, we've seen this UNLV team be really physical, and in a mid-major conference, I think a team that can really wear and tear you can do a lot of damage. So I could see UNLV being a really impressive team that can make a run in March and in this tournament.
Yeah, I got my eyes on New Mexico. They spent time in the AP poll this year. I'm not sure if they're still up there. And I don't really take the AP poll for too much other than bragging rights. Mm-hmm. But I really do think that they could beat this Boise State team, and then it's just like puncher's chance in Nevada.
Yeah.
And obviously Nevada's a play game, but I see them winning either against Colorado State or San Jose State. But yeah, I think I could see New Mexico making a run. Obviously, got to have respect for San Diego State. Final Four team last year.
Mm-hmm.
National championship team. Who did UConn beat in the national championship? Was it San Diego State?
What was FAU?
Was it FAU?
But they beat somebody.
Either way, I could literally see I know they won't get all 7, but I could see 7 different teams ending up in March Madness from this conference. And then the conference that probably I paid most attention to as a University of Dayton basketball fan.
It was San Diego State. You're right.
It was San Diego State. Yeah.
So championship runner-up last year.
So and then real quick, just talking about the Atlantic 10. This has been obviously I'm a fan. I'm going to go to the University of Dayton as a student, so I'm very biased. But this conference has just been bonkers this entire year. So Dayton's the only ranked team. I think they're sitting at 25. The AP poll comes out in half an hour, and so we'll kind of see what happens here. But I want to just take a minute to talk about this conference, because I've seen crazy things happen in this conference, from a 3-way tie for the regular season conference championship to 4 different teams getting a bid in March Madness, and Dayton being the number 3 conference, number 3 team in the nation in 2020. this conference is truly like one of the most entertaining college basketball year after year because anyone can be anyone any night, and then anyone in this conference can go beat a Power 5 team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I think Dayton is, in my eyes, obviously I'm very biased, but I could see them as a Final Four team. Best shooting team in the country. Defense has like not been as strong in the second half of the season, but I think National Player of the Year contender Deron Holmes is second. Their best guard, Malachi Smith, hurt his knee in the opening game, is out for the year. And freshman transfer Javon Bennett from Merrimack, who, remember the team that beat Purdue in the first round last year? That Farley Dickinson?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were only in that spot because Merrimack went up from Division II to Division I and weren't eligible for the conference, weren't eligible for the March Madness tournament, but they beat FDU in their conference tournament. So think about, we could have seen Merrimack beat Purdue theoretically because they would have that seed.
Yeah.
He stepped up, has been a great defensive player for them. And the funniest part about it is that the team who's ranked 25 in the nation and is the only ranked team in this conference is the 3 seed in the conference tournament.
That's crazy.
I believe it's the 3 seed. Let me check that real quick. But for sure not the number 1 seed because that's Richmond. And Richmond's an old team. They have 5 seniors on the roster right now. And which is kind of funny because 2 years ago they had a bunch of seniors and had a turnaround. And now, just keep moving through the program. And they went to the conference tournament 2 years ago. VCU was in the conference tournament finals last year. And really, there's just so much parity in this league, but at the same time, it's like there's a certain high class in this league that's able to just compete year after year after year, regardless of roster. And so, I'm biased. I see Dayton making a run to the final, but I don't know that the final is a shoo-in for any team that gets there. So I believe, let me check here real quick. It's Richmond, Loyola, Chicago, Dayton, UMass. All get the double bye. And then Dayton has lost to Richmond, VCU, Loyola, Chicago, and George Mason. All on the road. They're undefeated at home, but have lost to those teams on the road. And so, you think about that, you go into Brooklyn, you go into the Barclays Center, neutral site, you don't have the home court advantage that you do at a VCU, that you do at a Dayton, that you do at a Richmond. But I think, it's really a toss-up for me because I don't know who's going to come out of this conference tournament. I know Dayton's going to be in the tournament because they're the 25 ranked team in the country. They should get an at-large bid. I have no idea who's going to win this.
Yeah.
And so, we see with these conference tournaments, we saw it with the, I believe it was the Missouri Valley Conference this past weekend. And I'm sure, we're going to see more down the stretch of this week. I would be paying attention to these conference tournaments because the runner-up in the final should be a lot of people's sleeper picks for a run in March Madness because that's typically how it works out.
Yes.
And so, we talk about the Mountain West Conference and the A10, and I'm sure we'll be able to discuss some more next week when we have an actual bracket. Hopefully have my boy Alec Ossopuck in here and do a bracket video. But, these are the tournaments that I really think people should be paying attention to.
Speaking of which, I believe tonight, ESPN, James Madison, Arkansas State,
Yes.
Sun Belt Championship. Watch that. When James Madison, Texas State went on one of the wildest conference runs, in their bracket I've ever seen. 11 seed, upset team after team, make it to the semifinal. James Madison barely beat them out. James Madison's a team that can legitimately make a run to the tournament. They are really good. It's really weird how good this founding father is at basketball. And on top of that, App State, who was, the crown jewel of that conference down there, lost one of the best games of the year to Arkansas State just a few days ago. And now that same Arkansas State team could solidify themselves a spot in the tournament against the James Madison team that will probably make it at large either way. But either this is a big momentum swing. We could have a new position in the tournament. App State might be out thanks to that loss. This has been a really insane tournament, and it's been a blast to watch as someone who loves some Sun Belt action.
Yeah. I think I'm really excited to talk about Big 12, Mountain West, the A10, even like the SEC. Just a lot of good college hoops action coming this week. I mean, my favorite weekend of the year is coming up here. I love Selection Sunday. It's like a holiday in my house. So, we'll obviously dive in more to that actual big bracket when we get there. But this has been episode 17 of the Backpage. You can find our episodes on Spotify and YouTube.